Welcome to the Her Voice Shines podcast, where we celebrate the power, brilliance, and resilience of women everywhere. I'm your host, Shanadra Washington. Join us as we share inspiring stories and insights from extraordinary women who have found their voice and are making a difference. Together, we'll create a ripple effect, illuminating the path to visibility and empowerment. Let's break barriers, shatter ceilings, and lift each other up. In each episode, we dive deep into the journeys of women who have turned their challenges into triumphs and their dreams into reality. Whether you're looking for motivation, guidance, or a community that understands your journey, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and remember, let your voice shine. And guys, we have landed back at the Her Voice Shines podcast. I'm your beautiful host, Shanadra Washington, streaming from none other than Houston, Texas. And guess what? My guest told me that I am her very first podcast. So I am calling that an honor. I am so happy that she's here. So we have to make it really, really special for her. Let me tell you something. She's going to come to the stage, do our normal drill, which is tell us her name, where she's streaming from, and we get the magic of her story without any further waiting time. Here's my very beautiful guest for today.
Hi, good morning. Thank you first and foremost for having me. Yes, this is my very first podcast. Breaking me out of my mold with podcasts. So looking forward to today. I am streaming from the beautiful beaches of Lower Slower, Delaware, state of Delaware, in a town called Selbyville, Delaware. A little bit about me. I am the founder and principal of HR Reinforced, which provides fractional CHR services to startups, typically in the life science realm. It's where we've kind of been our bread and butter for the last 10 years, but also spent about 16 years in finance, working with tech and a few other type industry startup organizations. So I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation on fractional HR today with you.
I love it. And guess what? I think you may be my first Delaware guest. So we have a lot of
nice. Checking a lot of boxes today.
Everything off to that. I was like, yeah, this is the first one from Delaware. So I'm super excited. And it's also a place I've never visited, and it is on the list to do. So you say you're down there with the beaches. So okay, gotta keep that in the back of my mind when I'm thinking about what to do out there in Delaware. But thank you for that. And what like a multifaceted career, from finance to, HR. I love that I actually have a bit of a finance background. When I left my corporate career in 2021, I was a global manager for operations, and I worked in finance for 13 years, doing a number of different roles, 10 different roles in 13 years. And then here I am in front of you today, Kimberly Mack. But one of the things that really had to shift in Shanadra when I left my corporate career to building this thing, there was this internal shift. So tell me about the internal shift. It was from moving from corporate HR to actually launching HR Reinforced. Let's start off with that shift and maybe why you even left to launch HR Reinforced.
Yeah, sure. So kind of the industry, I had been full-time with a pharmaceutical organization. And for anyone that's been in life sciences, it's great when you're in it. It can be very rewarding. Usually a lot of people join with a tie to the mission, whether it's a company putting out a drug for cancer or, some kind of intestinal diagnosis. You're usually tied to it in somehow, and the people are amazing, no doubt about it. But there's usually something that comes along the road that you didn't always see coming, and it's usually not related to the individual, but more so, rounds of funding couldn't be generated to launch another product, or there's a restructuring coming out of acquisition, those type things. So I was at the face of that. That was back in 21. And I kind of let that be my catalyst for why I wanted to build my company, which I did. And it's worked. It's actually worked so much in that it's gotten me connected with other life science companies to which I have converted 2 other times to become their full-time HR leader. So it's a model that's working for me. It gets me out in the community. I also belong to and am a member not only of the local chamber, the Bethany Beach Fenwick shout out to them, chamber, but also the Delaware Bioscience Association. So out and about, the state of Delaware itself is trying to become really the new life science hub on the East Coast, separate from Philly and Boston and New York. So looking to be part of that build out here as well. So I kind of let the fates decide my journey, and been very comfortable in this space and looking to expand over the next couple months as well.
I love that. And I'm also too a part of a couple of chambers here in the Houston area. And I just want also to the listeners to know that those chambers can be very important and very strategic, really networking and arms to your business if used properly. So those of you who are watching, who are, maybe transitioning from corporate going into something that may be a little bit similar, and you're looking for a place to plop down. When you said that, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm connected to chambers here in Houston, and it has been impactful for me. Did you find yourself having to maybe reframe your identity when you transferred over? And then what was it like to feel like basically selling your value in a different way? Because it's kind of different when you're like applying for a job. And what's important here on the podcast is that we want to make sure that women understand the journey holistically. Yeah, we talk about the business, but we want to also highlight the journey behind it so that more women are encouraged to take the step. So talk to me about that kind of framework of now I'm selling myself in a different way.
Yeah, so I actually volunteered to put on a couple different webinars. So volunteer, the catalyst there, that kind of catapulted me, where I volunteered to present at a couple industry specific events. Those are a great way to kind of make yourself become that go-to person, that knowledgeable organization or person, being top of mind. So I have recently put it out there to the chamber that I'll be organizing that, so that fellow people in the community who don't necessarily have HR representation within their own organization could come and have that opportunity to speak with me after the presentation also. I look to, my reputation is everything. So whether it was as a full-time employee or I had actually supported another organization, that is proof is in the pudding, as they say. You get a lot of additional work by doing good work for other clients, and word of mouth is a huge generator for additional work. So just kind of the additional thing, which I want to just pause and make mention to, is also trying to build it on the social platforms. So whether it's LinkedIn and becoming an educational voice, whether it's being that go-to expert, putting information out there to spark lights in founders of startups, where, let's just say, a situation occurred that I was attached to, and how I was able to diffuse it and or make it a better situation or a better outcome for a former organization. So it makes them think of, oh yeah, I'm going through that too right now. Maybe I should give her a call. She's already experienced that. So that would be where I would start. Just to make one comment to the chamber also, post-COVID, events are starting to come back to life where you're in network. I still believe truly in the in-person type networking situations. Yes, the virtual is fantastic. It has allowed us to connect with people much farther away from us for little to no money via virtually. But there is something to be said for those in-person engagements also.
Sure. And I think really with that, and I think a key takeaway is you said that reputation matters. And I try and, I'm telling you, Kim, we work with many women business owners, teaching them to pitch themselves and voice and visibility. We do a whole entire thing on really how to own the room. And one of the things I say, you only get one time to make a first impression. I don't care what they tell you. You only get one time. And this is not perfection. I am not a girl of perfection, but I do believe in excellence. I don't care what they say. I'm going to show up. We're going to do it a certain way. And I am just here to say, when you said it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that resonated with me so much because I remember that battle of like, oh my gosh, I've had this, stellar career, got a little toxic at the end, but when I got ready to leave and build this thing, I'm like, that model of excellence of showing up, getting the job done has to be intact when I go over and build this thing. And many business owners, especially women business owners, because we juggle so many hats, this is not passing judgment. Sometimes that level of excellence can fall through the cracks with certain things that we go through. So leading with reputation first is definitely what I took away from that segment. I want to thank you so much for highlighting this. I want to ask you this question before we kind of get into the logistics of your firm. But this was also, too, something that was like, oh, I feel it. You said that you used to always say yes, Kim. That was like Kim, I had a T-shirt for it. I was the yes girl. Sinead said yes for all the crappy projects, for all the yes was my thing.
Yep.
Tell me, how did you learn to discern which opportunities to decline? Because so many women are struggling. I'm like, well, why did you say yes to that? I mean, I can say it from a place because I've kind of grown from it, but I meet so many women that should have the poster, the T-shirt, and the bumper sticker that says,
I know. I think I have that same T-shirt. But yeah, I actually can account how I got there. At about 2 years ago, I actually decided to invest in myself, and I actually got a business coach. And through that exercise, it allowed me to hone in on what I enjoy most about HR and the segments of that I can pretty easily prioritize what are my favorite and what I'm very good at. And then there's those others that just kind of come with that human resource function that we all kind of have to deal with, but don't enjoy doing. Once I kind of carve that out with the help of my business coach, I then kind of put together a different business model for myself. And once I did that, then I could promote myself much more better in the conversations with potential clients. So that learning experience and kind of peeling back the layers to kind of look under the hood, so to say, what I'm good at, what I enjoy doing. You can start to talk a lot easier about yourself than in those contacts with those clients.
Mm-hmm. And that inventory is what I'm doing more of often. Like, if you're just not good at this, maybe you don't need to be saying yes to it. You know what I'm saying? And even with, having a small team, like delegating, certain tasks, it's like, Sinead, at some point, you're going to want to run this from a visionary perspective, and you can't chase down every little thing. If you can communicate properly and instill the model of excellence into your team members, you just have to trust them and let them do it. You can't do it all. So it's because of the reputation, things matter to me. Communication matters, customer service, and that touch really, really matters to me. Sometimes I find myself in that battle, like, oh my gosh, like, make sure the follow-up is clean. Make sure that we're available to do. And sometimes me just being so overwhelmed with that doesn't allow me to grow because I am not passing it on so that I can move on to other things. So I'm still in the learning phase. I'm not saying I'm completely healed from it, like Kimberly.
But to be in all fairness, I am still learning to be a better delegator. I tend to hold things if I think I can get it done quicker and more productive than allowing my team to take it. And I, through that business coaching, have learned ways that I can do that, because it's not only freeing me up to be more strategic, it's allowing them to grow as well. So they're learning some things that maybe they didn't touch in a previous role also. So it's been a learning experience for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. And I am going to take that too as kind of a takeaway, because I was just looking at like my week's task, and even like in the web podcast, and we have the extra other side of business. I was like, Sinead, why do you have so much? And I literally have a person, Kimberly, she's like, what's my next task? And I'm sitting over here with 20.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, Sinead, step away and make it make sense. You have someone that's literally asking you, and she is very capable of doing these things, and you have 20, and she's literally asking for work. You have to make it make sense. So like I say, I am telling you guys in full transparency, I am working on it, and I am hoping to be better at this. And I'm not saying the same thing next year. That's the only thing I can commit to today, is that I'm taking extra steps.
Well, it's a marathon. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, honestly. And every individual, especially in the, position of founder and owner, it's an evolution too. You're growing as a person as well as a business owner. And how better than to mentor the people behind you. So, I am in the same camp and I try every day. What of all these tasks can I offboard to one of the other teammates and give them a learning experience? And then they can add that to their catalog of all their expertise, so to say.
I love it. Let's go into your HR reinforced unique touch, because one of the things I looked at, you said that your fractional HR model grants executive level access on flexible terms. And I like that. So tell me what kind of scenario would be kind of the right size approach, like the right size approach that may serve best. And also, before you answer that question, I want you to give us in your terms, what is fractional HR? Because people hear HR and they think one thing. I'm like, HR, I worked in corporate. It's a lot of different layers of HR, but a lot of people don't know that. So I want you to give us in your words what fractional HR is. And then just to repeat that second question, what client scenarios does the right size approach kind of serve best?
Sure. So fractional HR versus your typical HR consultant, I would describe as fractional. You're actually sitting in a management position. So you're usually more senior level experience. You come in and you are a constant contributor versus on a part-time basis, but you're still literally part of the organization for a period of time. Where a consultant, you could come in just as for a particular project. The consultant, you probably are not on the org chart. It just depends how they're classifying. Some people do put that, but most of the time you're not. And where our little nugget or niche is we come in pretty much where a company is, as far as headcount, 2 to maybe 10 people. They probably, if they're raising funds, have moved beyond seed to Series A. And now they're slowly trying to figure out what roles they need to really get to the next level. So we'll come in there, we'll guide them through that. Our models, we have since modified. A couple years back, we probably would have just told you, for X number of hours a month, you're going to pay this hourly rate. Well, what we found is the retainer model works so much better. So a lot of startups don't have a lot of money. So we had to get strategic in how we promoted our business. So what we actually put together was we have they all have titles, but for clarity's sake, we have a model that would be 5 hours a week. And what that actually provides within that, we give clarity to the founder. So they know, okay, if I'm going beyond what this package has, that could be additional time and money. So that anything over that 5 hours would be at a different hourly rate. We also have 10-hour packages. And then if I come in 100% as your full-time fractional CHRO, there's a flat monthly cost. And that usually is for no less than 6 months' time.
Mm-hmm. And even in what I do on the consulting side, I'm just telling you that retainer model, it's just kind of the best. It gets a little bit, even now, I feel like it gets a little bit tricky with hourly, because you're trying to work within this particular time frame that you can hit a road bump, like, oh, it's gonna take a little bit more time than 2 hours. It's actually 4 hours. So us really moving over to that retainer based model is something that because we do very few things hourly now, but and I do find that, of course, when they're newer businesses, that cash trap is obviously the problem. So
exactly.
Trying to come in and articulate the value is really something that I am working on really toughly. The messaging, like, oh, this is the value of it. So that even though the cash is strapped, they're making a conscious decision. Like, I might not have it today, but she's presented the value so well that maybe next month when this cash opens up, she's the first person I'm going to call. So really that value-based messaging is really what we are honing in on to really move toward solely only retainer-based. model.
Well, and on top of that, I find that the business leaders, because they're so focused on money, if you say, okay, but one stress is off your plate. I'm going to take all the HR things in this 5-hour package. They become mine. I own them. I'm relieving you of that. For budget's sake, it's a flat, X dollars for those 5 hours. And then maybe as you're growing, we move from this package to the next package. You're needing more time. We move you to the 10-hour a month support, those type things. But it's a great way for them to know the level of expertise they're getting and the stress that you're taking from them for a flat dollar. Whereas if it's hourly, unless they're tracking your time, which most of them are not until they get your invoice, they forget how much interaction you had. And now suddenly the budget is blown sky high. So it gives them a little bit more calm and sanity around controlling that, because it's a fixed fee. They know what it is. They know how they can interact with you. Because usually at the 5-hour level, they have so much email exchange with me and so much phone time. So whereas if in the more robust packages, they have access to me a lot more often and in different methods. So it's kind of a win-win for both parties, because they get to control the budget and I know cash flow on our end too.
Yeah, sure. So I think what's important to capture here from you. So how do you ensure that this doesn't feel like a generic playbook and like I'm still giving you something that's customized, even though, I have a skill set of things that I probably know that will work for startups or whatever it is, because, it's just the basic things. But how do you ensure that like they feel that this is a customized approach? They're really going to shift my business reality and it doesn't feel kind of like this generic playbook.
Yeah, sure. So when I actually meet with them, I've usually done research before we actually get together. So I kind of already have a bunch of information kind of pre-built before I go into that call. And I may have already built a business plan, already kind of tackling what they actually are hoping to get out of it. During the call, though, I have an intake client questionnaire to which we kind of really dig deep. And then what I will do is it's not call 1, but it's call 2, that we actually start to talk about the money and what the cost will be to them. Because until I actually understand in their mind where they think they are and what their core problems are, I might identify something different for them post call that I'll then try to relay to them. So that might look a little different because the extent that I need to support them might be bigger than the 5 hours. It might be 10 hours. So after that client intake call, I get a much stronger understanding of them. And then we'll schedule that secondary call to which we'll regroup, because I like to kind of restate back to them what they told me and then share with them what I heard from the conversation. And sometimes they're surprised and I can influence the direction or the strategy that they originally thought, the road path that they should take.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And it's always going to be that conversation. I think this is an excellent segue, because I wish we had more time for this one. Because, this is going to be my question. Because I came from OpEx, right? When I left corporate, all we talked about was OpEx. Operation Excellence, that was like the mold of things that we were doing right before I started to leave my corporate career, right? But then layered was like, man, like there needs to be some heart-centered leadership. Like, yes, I know there's OpEx. We know it, Kim. For everybody that's in corporate, they know exactly what I'm talking about. We know it's the OpEx, right? And we know that there's heart-centered leadership. From your perspective, the question, maybe the companies that you're working with now, tell me how that kind of looks on the landscape now, because I think a lot of people kind of get lost between that medium a little bit, because how do we, remain operationally excellent, but then we need a layer of sympathy and heart-centered leadership.
Yeah, so there's a couple different things. They need the guidance. The companies usually need the guidance. They don't know what they don't know until we start educating them. A lot of founders, until they get that first fine or, some kind of past due information because they didn't realize that we're at the point that we actually have to file something. until that shows up, they don't really understand how much HR actually touches. So maybe it's compliance that we need to get corrected for them so that they no longer get those notices. Certain things that we have to post, if it's in-person office, things we have to post. They just need an education sometimes. Founders think they can do everything until they understand the complexities of the full round employment bubble that we in HR work within. So most of the time they're working off spreadsheets before they actually realize, oh my gosh, you could take away 16 hours of your week just doing spreadsheets when we could implement one application with minimal cost and get you up and running much more fluidly. It's the education, I think, for the founder to understand, what am I missing? I didn't realize I needed that. And opening their eyes to kind of get on board so that they can get back to what building the business and building and growing the business.
Mm-hmm. It starts with that education, because you're right. They don't know what they don't know. And like I said, fortunately for me, Kim, like I had the, corporate career in leadership, starting off. And so I was able to bring a lot of things from my corporate career in terms of like already doing operational excellence, already built as a textured leader, already, managing multicultural teams. So I really brought a good, strong, and healthy kind of skill set prior to starting something else. However, it's not always the same when we're meeting business owners that start from a different place. So that education piece, I said, it's not always just about these products and services. There has to be some meat and some foundational support on how these things.
Well, it's not only that too. It's sometimes having hard conversations with founders too, who maybe, in the HR world, things that they're saying could be potentially devastating to the business also. So it's educating, and getting some of those trainings in place so that they don't get themselves in some kind of situation that could end up shutting their business down because of something they said or did. So, it's a little bit of everything, across many different topics. But again, the education is key. And that's where I think, once we do that client intake form and hear their side of things, we can kind of put a blend together and prioritize appropriately with that founder so that they know this is where we're going to get started and this is how long it approximately could take. And how much they're committed to that process will be evident in, coming out of that exchange.
So let me just say in the professional world, after a company works with HR Reinforce, what are you hoping they say? What is the field that you're hoping to ignite after working with these companies?
I would love to kind of be that go-to person or team that people in the community and nationally, because we do have clients that are virtual 100% also. I just want to kind of be that group that's known for empathy, for expertise in many things HR, specifically, HR operations, HR strategy, HR technology, and total rewards. It's kind of where everybody that is on my team, and as well as myself, have made up 30 years of experience to get where we are today. So we have the safeguards in place, we have the knowledge in place, and we have the team in place to support many different type organizations. So hoping that's kind of what gets generated, and people, once they work with us, feel comfortable putting our name out there as that group that you need to work with.
Yes, I love it. And let me ask you this personal question, because I know your goal is to grow, Miss Kimberly Mack. Tell me how you're crafting organizational expansion that honors your well-being and your commitment to meaningful work, because it's always about the, growth and everything, but we also have to be centered about our own personal well-being, and then what does it mean to keep showing up to do meaningful work? So tell me about your navigation there.
Yeah, sure. So I have been on that journey very much so, trying to balance work-life balance. It's a daily thing. When I was in corporate, there was a lot of control around that. Whereas now that I'm a founder and business owner, I take that to heart in all of how I manage the business, how I manage working with employees. And I want people to want to work here and work for me. So first and foremost, some of those conversations up front are, how many hours do you want to work is key to that initial exchange before we bring somebody on. And some people want part-time. I have a lot of moms on my team, and I love that. I myself never, fully left my career. I had for many, many, many years been the breadwinner in my marriage. And that was important to me, as well as, plus I was the daughter of a single mom and learned some hard lessons that you definitely, as a female, want to be stable on your own. Do not rely on your partner for that. So be stable as an individual yourself. So my mom drilled that into me early on. So it's really important to me that, I'm bringing business on that can support my team as well as myself. So, but I also want to be flexible. And, some of my team tell me, certain weeks that they can give more hours than the norm. And then we kind of work with them on that. So that's the part I like. I like having that go-to group of people that are always there, always wanting to support, jump on projects. And that's the group I want to work with. And I think that's why they stay.
Absolutely. And I think with you saying what you said, I have a lot of women that are mothers, and I really love that. I think because you have that overarching view of, that what it is like to be a mother, the things that kind of come into place. I think with you knowing that and probably having I imagine a high level of emotional intelligence that keeps them wanting to stay and wanting to raise their hands.
Yep.
I remember even in corporate, like even when it was like crappy jobs, crappy work, it was the managers and bosses that kind of made their reality not seem so so tight. Yep. I mean, yeah, it's still there, but because you read in a way that this kind of helped me navigate this a little bit better, it made me want to stay and still want to support the team and support the organization and moving forward. So thank you for sharing this. I do want to make sure I get to this before we kind of cue over to wrap up. But one of the things I really liked about your format, you were pretty vocal about faith guiding your steps. And I love that. Faith, I tell people last year, 2024 was like my biggest faith shift to date. I had a lot of different things happen. I really had to get grounded and rooted. It felt like the wilderness almost. Like there were a lot of different things I had to pace through. It was a lot of hard times, but I learned so much really in that. Tell me about maybe how your spiritual foundation has influenced the risks that you have taken. Because many people ask me like this still happening. Like, how are you still actually going? Like, how are you still making things happen or whatever? I said, this is the goal. This is the promise. So I walk every day in and knowing that life is not going to always be easy. That does not negate the promise. That is what I do in terms of me and my risk taking and still trying to punch out and get it done. But, when you're a leader, there's a bunch of different, competing priorities. The spiritual foundation is so important. So can you maybe talk about how that has influenced your risk and maybe even your growth?
That has come with age and time, to be quite frank. If you'd asked me that question about 6 years ago, I probably wouldn't feel as confident answering that. But I can tell you, every time fate has redirected my journey, in hindsight, I'm now able to see that it's benefited me, whereas at the time it may have felt catastrophic. And I think with that came wisdom. And by nature, I'm a very positive person, and I'm confident in my expertise. I'm confident in myself, and I've been through the journey before, and I know not all of it is easy. And somehow, looking back, I continue to plunge forward. So determination is one of those things, and resilience is critical. All bad times are not forever. And if I look back, I'm now 55, can't believe it. It's all come full circle. What I thought in my teen years was horrible experience, it made me grow as a person. What I saw my mom go through as a single mom, it's made me a stronger woman. And professionally, I had dropped out of college. I went and put myself back through school after my daughter was born. I didn't go the traditional route. So everything that led me to this point has been dictated by something else, maybe out of my control. So it's just a matter of what you choose to set as your goals too, and whether or not you can block out the noise, the bad stuff that tends to pop into your head when you're laying in bed at night and keeping you awake. Go take that walk, clear your head, do exercise, speak to your spouse, speak to your partner, and get some of that reinforcement from your partner. My husband's been critical to that, and it's ironic because he's not always a positive person, but he's confident in my capabilities. And that means so much to me. And that's kind of one of the things that keeps me going.
Oh, I love that. She said, I'm 55 and I just can't believe it, but 55 and still going, 55 and running the company, 55 and still choosing herself, 55 and still choosing to grow, 55 and still learning.
That's right. That's right.
So, I am, I am here for it. And I am very, very proud of you for navigating and standing in front of us today as this woman, this CEO, who has chosen to go out and do something on her own that still brings her lots of value and something that she's been centered and rooted in. And let me say this, Kimberly Mack, I want to make sure that we have a clean segment. We have talked about, of course, HR Reinforced throughout the entire podcast, but also I always like to have a clean segment where you give us the overarching goal of HR Reinforced and any connection points you want to give to our audience, whether that's your social medias, your website, but we always have a clean segment that talks about the company's overarching goals and mission, and then those connection points. So over to you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate that. And thank you for that lovely sentiment that you also mentioned. 55 is just a number in my mind anyway, but it's a marker and I keep that in mind. I had hoped always to retire at age 62, and I'm not sure that's going to happen. I'm not that person that necessarily wants to just give up everything and have someone else take over. So I am open to letting that kind of evolve and see how that goes. HR Reinforced is my baby right now, and I'm giving everything to that. And we're hoping that we can support people in our direct community as well as nationally, like I said, which we do have the ability to be virtual and still support many good startup organizations. You can locate us. Our website is HR-reinforced with a D on the end, like dog.com. LinkedIn page, www.linkedin.com/company/HR-reinforced. And we are also on Facebook and Instagram that you can find us also. So thank you for that plug.
Absolutely. And this is a part in our show we play rapid fire.
Oh boy. Okay.
I have pre-prepared 10 questions for you. You don't get a whole lot of. You just get maybe a sentence, a word or two, but they're just designed to keep you present in the moment. And
okay.
It's all about HR Reinforced. Here's the first one. Give me your guiding value. What's a value that really guides you?
Empathy.
Me too. Biggest lesson from building from scratch?
Hard times.
Favorite self-care boundary?
Oh, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat that?
Sure. We always think of self-care as like going to do something, but for you, what is a self-care boundary? I use this boundary to care for myself.
My evenings are my time.
Love it. What would be the best client in one phrase?
Climate?
Client.
Client. I'm sorry about that. Best client. Open to suggestion.
Got to be willing to learn. Okay. Give me one thing that most people misunderstand about fractional HR.
There's a misconception against what a consultant is versus fractional HR. Fractional HR is a much more higher level individual that's usually held a pretty significant role within an organization back in corporate. And they come and they actually hold a leadership role within an organization for a set period of time on a fractional basis versus a consultant who typically comes in and maybe does project work or there's a finite, beginning and end.
Sure. When I feel stretched, I reset by
voting.
Okay. Give me your proudest impact moment so far as it relates to HR Reinforced.
But I'm having trouble with that first part of that. If you could repeat that.
Oh, absolutely. Your proudest impact moment.
Promise impact moment.
Your proudest impact.
Proudest.
Yeah, your proudest impact moment as it relates to HR Reinforced.
Most recently, it was finding the right CHRO that we hired for a company that had been in growth phase that we saw through 2 years of support that we handed over to the new, and I had been part of that search to find that person who would be that person to be there. They were ready to hire and bring on full-time that person.
Okay. I love that. Tell me the word that defines success today.
Happiness.
Happiness. Favorite word in strategy.
Design.
And last but not least, finish this sentence.
Interesting. Okay.
I lead with heart because.
I want others to treat me well, like I hopefully treat them.
I love that. What a beautiful rapid fire round, Kimberly. You whizzed right through that with no problem. So congratulations there. But this is the part in our show we give our guests their opportunity to give us their final thoughts. We asked them to capture some great parting words for the space that we shared and really something that captures the essence of Kimberly Mack. So I'm going to cue over to you for final thoughts and I'll be back to close the show.
Awesome. So thank you. Appreciate the time today. And obviously my first podcast. Hope everybody thought it went well. So I would love to talk to anybody that has been on the podcast today. I would be happy to have an initial conversation with you. If you're one of those type of businesses just getting started and have some initial questions. So feel free to reach out to us. I know it's not easy getting started. And like I mentioned in the interview, you don't always know what you don't know from the HR compliance side and building that infrastructure for your organization. So feel free to give us a call, reach out over email, over our website. Happy to have that initial call with you. So look forward to staying connected and I'll pass it back to you.
And thank you so much for that. Thank you for your time and being here. I tell my guests, I appreciate them probably more than they know. I get to facilitate these conversations and really they're reciprocal because I learn so much. I get to see the insides of these women and learn about their businesses. So this podcast is really not just a podcast for me, but it is a place of connection and one that I take very, very seriously. So I have to thank you for Kimberly Mack for trusting me and even being here with me today. And to everyone that's out there in the Her Voice Shines podcast land, I want to tell you like the church folks say, I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. And I'll be back at another amazing woman in no time on the Her Voice Shines podcast. But until then, we love you and we are out.